Stories After Dusk.
Around 2006-ish, I was driving flatbed. Picked up a load of construction material, drywall, roofing, don't remember, but it was all prepackaged in boxes, and I remember having to use strap protectors on the load. Rural Tennessee. Memory is foggy now, but I want to say it was between Memphis and Nashville, but closer to the intersection of the MS, AL, and TN state lines. Tarp required, so I strapped everything down, tarped the load, and left the shipper. About 5 miles down the road, in the middle of nowhere woods on a 2-lane road, I noticed my tarp flapping in the wind, found a wide shoulder, and pulled over to fix it. I realized that I just flat did a shitty job tarping this load, and decided to redo it on the side of the road. Undo all the bungee straps, drag the tarps off, roll them back up, climb up on the load, and start unrolling the tarps again. And I see a guy walking down the same side of the road I'm on, coming towards my truck. I don't think anything about it other than to keep an eye on him because I'm in the middle of nowhere, and continue what I'm doing. About the time I have the tarps set in place and am climbing down to start hooking the bungee straps back on, this dude is getting close enough that I'm now paying more attention to him than I am to tarping my load. I grabbed my winch bar and set it on the trailer where I'm working, just in case. An 8-pound solid metal bar about 4 feet long, tapered to a blunt point on one end and hollow on the other, used for tightening straps and chains, etc. The guy gets to me, and the first thing I notice is his hair. It's like a mullet, but it's patchy as fuck. Like he tried to cut his own hair and had a seizure in the middle of the process and said, "Fuck it, good enough to party." The next thing I noticed were his eyes, which I can only describe as off, like they were clear. I didn't think he was drunk or high or anything, but it also gave me the distinct impression that the elevator didn't go all the way up. Clothes were dirty and not well maintained, with dirty white tennis shoes, because I remember he didn't have laces on one shoe, and the tongue was noticeably out of place. He stops by me, waits until I acknowledge him, and just says, "I've got a long walk." I'm like, "Yeah man, you do. We're in the middle of nowhere," making it clear there's no ride to be had here. He nods, starts walking by me, continuing on his way, stops at about the driver door on my truck, and turns around, comes back to me and repeats himself, "I've got a long walk." At this point, I explain that I can't give him a ride, insurance and all that. Apologize for not being able to help him out, and he seems to accept this, turns around and leaves. I wait for him to get a little ways from my truck and start working on finishing the tarp job. I still keep an eye on him, and he's moving away from me. As I'm putting on the last of the bungee straps, I look over to check where he's at, and he's turned around heading back towards me, now about 100 yards in front of my truck, and coming back my way. It looks like he's talking on a cell phone. Has his hand up to his face, and I can barely make out his mouth moving, his other hand waving like he's having a conversation with someone. I finished with the straps, grab my winch bar, and am climbing into my truck as he's about 10 yards away now. Soon as I'm in the cab, I lock the doors and set the winch bar on the passenger seat, just in case. I look at the guy and realize he's not talking on a phone. He's talking to his fucking hand, and now I'm nervous, because he doesn't look like he's having a nice pleasant chat. It looks more like an angry conversation. Crank the truck up, put it in gear, and just pull out. Didn't look for traffic or anything. As I pass him, he's just looking at me, still holding his hand to his face, with his dead-ass look on his face, just staring at me. Gave me the creeps. About the time I hit 5th or 6th gear, I look in the mirror, and there's no one there. I'm an owner-operator, over-the-road trucker. In my time driving cross-country, probably the freakiest encounter I had was going through Cabbage Pass in Oregon. Let me set the scene. It's dark and late fall in 2016. I'm coming from Florida with a load of beer, headed to Portland. OR. It's about 0200 and it's cold out. I had just left a truck stop in Utah, on I-84. I can't remember the name of it, but it has a Thunderbird as its logo, and it's probably on or very near a reservation. My wife and I had just gotten something to eat, and were in the river lounge enjoying our extremely late lunch. This is a common thing in the industry. Anyway, we get done and head back to my tractor. Everything seems like any other night. We get going and get into the pass. This is where things get strange. Ahead of me in the distance is another trucker. He's not moving terribly fast. My guess was a heavy load like mine. It's starting to snow a bit. As I'm putting up the pass, I get close enough to see the company logo. It's a Prime Inc. rig. In my head, I'm thinking, that explains the slug pace up the mountain. As close as I can get, I can't seem to pass him. A few turns up the pass, and somehow I lost sight of him. Didn't think much of it at the time. The downside is the next couple turns. He probably hit the grade and coasted down. Whatever. I get to the Oregon side of the pass and hit the pilot down there. Wife needs the toilet. We get stopped and head inside. I didn't see any Prime trucks in the lot. Figured he just kept going, until I heard a Swift driver talking. He was saying a Prime driver was trying to run him off the road. Just about that time, an older driver starts talking. About 10 years before I even got my CDL, a Prime driver went over the pass near the top. A purple and black tractor. Well damn, I saw a purple, black Prime tractor on the pass. Coincidence? Has to be. I say as much, and the older driver gives me a look. Did you pass him? Asked the driver, to which I said I couldn't. He got pale. Now I'm getting antsy. The hell? Okay, driver, what the fuck is going on? A purple black Prime goes over the pass? What happened? Seems he lost control when he hit black ice and went off the top of the pass. He died. People have been seeing that tractor going up the pass and not seeing it on the other side. Anywhere. Now I'm officially done with this conversation and was going to leave when the driver asked if my CB was on. Well, no. It's 2 in the morning and my wife was sleepy. Be kind of rude. The older driver tells me that probably saved our lives. A few weeks beforehand, a fatality accident happened on the pass, at the top, on black ice. After talking to a driver on the CB, that was all the provocation I needed to never go over Cabbage Pass again. A ghost trucker? No fucking thanks. We're a hard group of people to spook, but when our lifelines become liabilities, that's unsettling. I didn't get a lot of sleep for a couple days. That shit freaked me out. It was about 2 a.m., passing through rural Texas, making a heavy machinery delivery. The route I was taking to this farm was through rural Texas. You know the type you see in the movies that involve a farm in the middle of nowhere type stuff? A house every 2 miles type deal? And little did I know, this route I was gonna take was about to lead to the scariest / freakiest experience I've ever had. Hands down. Period. I have LED light bars on my truck, all over the front, so when there's no oncoming traffic, I can see for literally a mile. So I'm driving down the road, minding my own business, when I can see something off, in the far distance with my lights. And the closer and closer I get, it looks more and more like a person. About 200 yards from what appears to be a person, I can make out that it's a girl because of the long hair and light-colored clothes she had on. So I slow down as to not scare this girl walking on the road, and turn my brights off so I don't blind her. Truck lights are bright enough as is, so I could see her just fine without, at this point. As I get closer, she turned, and when she did, my CB radio started making some light static. And as I passed by, I swear, she had absolutely no face, at all. It looked like a hollow shell. I'm getting antsy just typing this shit out, and you'll see why in the next paragraph. I've never flown through gears so fast in my entire life, especially with a heavy load, and I had to be doing at least 70 before I finally came back to my senses. I called the police about it, and the worst part was, they said I'm not the first person to call this in. Through the years, they've had people call it in with similar descriptions of a girl walking down the road in the early morning hours, and when she turns, she has a hollowed out face. The sheriff I talked to told me about an incident that happened years back. A girl in her 20s was struck and killed by a truck speeding down that road in the early morning hours, and it dragged her so far down the road it ground her face down to nothing on the asphalt. And she was described as having long hair and wearing light-colored clothes, the exact same description as I saw that night. Needless to say, I will never be taking that route again if I have another delivery. Ever.